No killing the other patients. Rule number 1. Hello, my name is Will, and this is Exploding Helicopter, the podcast going confidently in the direction of its dreams. Because in films, rules are everything. No killing, no weapons, members only. Simple enough. But as soon as you put a group of desperate, heavily armed criminals in one place and tell them to behave, you're not creating order, you're creating a countdown. And that's exactly the idea at the heart of today's film, Hotel Artemis, a near-future thriller set in a secret, members-only hospital for criminals, where the rules are strict, right up until they're not. And speaking of members-only establishments with very strict entry requirements, my guest on this show is a man who somehow still got in. It's my good friend Nick Rehak. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing pretty great. Thank you for letting me in once again.
I know I really need to look at the lock and the security arrangements I've got in place. But you're here. It's too late. We're going forward with this discussion of Hotel Artemis. And when I dropped you a line proposing this film to you, you came back with. I kind of guessed you probably hadn't even heard of it, but you emailed back saying, "Oh yeah, I'm excited to do this one because I've been meaning to watch it for ages." So and that really intrigued me. So what was it about this film that meant that it was on your radar and it was one that you were excited about getting to see?
Well, last year when my daughter was born, there was a lot of she's falling asleep in my arms. I kind of don't want to move around a whole lot. Let me just flip through and see if something's on, and I'll watch it at a very low volume. And more times than not, John Wick would come on. And so I would watch John Wick. I've seen the first John Wick, I can't tell you how many times at this point. And in my head, I don't know why, it registered that the name of the building they stayed in was the Hotel Artemis. Because a couple years ago, they had done a show all about, or what I thought was a movie about this. And I'm like, oh, this is the movie that Will's talking about. This is kind of like the prequel, if you will, of like what that world was like. This should be fun. And then 5 minutes into the movie, I went, oh, no, you're wrong. Nicholas, this is the Continental you're thinking of. This is not Hotel Artemis. Also, the Continental was a TV show. It wasn't even a movie. So this was just total and complete mistaken identity and the wrong thing. And you know what? I think I was that much more excited by the film for truly having no idea what it was about, what was going to happen, who was going to show up. Because in my mind, I'm like, oh, it's, the Wickiverse, and we'll see, hints of a young Winston and all this other stuff. Not at all the case.
Well, disappointment in the film that I asked you to view is kind of built into the exploding helicopter guest experience, Nick. So I'm sorry that you thought that this film was part of the John Wick universe, and then it turned out that it wasn't. But we're going to be obviously talking about the film, so hopefully you got something out of the experience of watching this movie. So let's get stuck in to Hotel Artemis. So let's see if someone can explain exactly what that hotel is.
The Artemis is a secret hospital for criminals.
This place was built on trust and rules.
If you knew what she could do to you with just that cup of coffee.
You're lucky this place has rules.
Visiting hours are never.
Hotel Artemis.
You might want to buy some scented candles. It smells like somebody died in here.
They did.
In theaters June 8th. Trailer tomorrow.
Hotel Artemis takes place in a near-future Los Angeles where the city is in the grip of a violent riot sparked by water shortages. Amid the chaos, a group of criminals seek refuge in the Hotel Artemis, a secret members-only hospital that caters exclusively to crooks, mobsters and hitmen. Inside the hotel, it's run by the nurse, who enforces a strict set of rules: no weapons, no outside business, and most importantly, no killing the other patients. When a bank robbery goes wrong, two brothers check in for treatment, joining a small group of dangerous and unpredictable patients already inside. As tensions rise and personal agendas start to collide, the rules that hold the hotel together begin to crack. Things escalate further with the arrival of a powerful crime boss whose presence threatens to upend the fragile balance inside the hotel. With the city burning outside and the danger growing within, the nurse is forced to confront her past and decide how far she's willing to go to keep control. In the cast, we have Jodie Foster, Sterling K. Brown, Dave Bautista, Jeff Goldblum, Zachary Quinto, and Sofia Boutella. The film was written and directed by Drew Pearce. Now, he's primarily known as a writer with credits on The Fall Guy, Iron Man 3, Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, and the Hobbs and Shaw movie. He does have a bunch of directing credits, but they're mostly for music videos, and this is the only film that he has helmed. Hotel Artemis has a 6.1 user rating on IMDb and a 2.8 out of 5 user rating on Letterboxd. So, with all of that out of the way, Nick, what did you make of Hotel Artemis? Did the concept hook you in?
It did hook me in. This was one of those, not necessarily disappointed, but pleasantly surprised. It became a film where, every time a new character showed up, I was like, oh, I didn't know that this person would be in the film. Oh, I didn't know that person would be in the film. And then at the same time, trying to kind of solve the mystery within, if you will, and take a look at some of the, just trying to solve it for myself, if you will, trying to sort out the ending, because there are a couple moments where the film drags a little bit, because they're trying to focus on, I think, too many subplots at once, and too much character building in a short amount of time. So in those moments, I'm checking out a little bit, and I'm like, oh, I wonder, let's see if I can predict where it's going to head next. And pleasantly, I was wrong most of the time at my guesses. So I'd say overall, I enjoyed the film. Is it something I'm going to watch again? I don't know. I wouldn't shy away if I was over, a friend's house or something and it was on, or if I somehow caught it on TV and it was on or something. I definitely dug it more than I realized I would.
Okay, well, that's interesting to hear, because I think it mirrors some of my own thoughts on the movie, because I've seen this film, I think, 3 times now in total. I saw it a few years back when I was just looking to tick it off my list of films that had an exploding helicopter in, and then I watched it a couple of times in preparation for this episode. And actually, the second or the third in total time that I watched it in terms of my prep for this podcast, I think the film actually went up a little bit in my estimation. And I agree with you. I think it's a good movie. I think it's worth 90 minutes of your time. I wouldn't necessarily think it's a film that I ever really need to see again. So it's got a kind of like an interesting concept. It's got a good hook. It's got a really good cast who put in some really fun performances. And it's not too long. I do agree with you. Weirdly, I mean, this film's only 94 minutes, and even then, it still sort of drags in places. But you know what? I've watched far worse films. I've watched far longer films. So I you know what? I had a good time watching this movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, the dragging only really comes when they stop kind of moving the story, which is a weird thing to say. But when they decide to stop and take one of these little side steps and go through a subplot or go through like an old memory or something, I feel like that's where the film kind of loses its momentum. I think you can get away with a sentence or two, but I feel that with a film like this, the leaner you keep it and the more you keep it moving, the more exciting it is, and the more time it gives you to ask those questions of like, oh, that part's interesting, I wonder if they're going to revisit that, or oh, this part of the world is interesting, I wonder if they'll, dive into it deeper and keep that magic alive. But, like I keep saying, there's too many different little subplots and things to kind of throw a wrench into it. And that kind of, at times, kind of takes me out of the movie, because I'm like, all right, why are we stopping to talk about this? Like, this kind of just doesn't matter. If they had one that they had focused on, okay, sure, that's fine. But to keep kind of pulling and build that world, we don't really have that kind of time here, nor is it already established. Like, if this was a sequel of sorts and we're digging into some subplot stuff, okay, maybe. But for what it is, I think it tries to do a little too much.
And I think one of the issues, I think for me, ultimately, about this film not being anything more than sort of good or solid, is that I didn't ultimately care too much about any of the characters in this movie. I probably sort of felt the most for Jodie Foster's character, the nurse, and the kind of the arc of her character within this story. Sterling K. Brown's character, I just really didn't care about him. I feel really bad about that because I actually think he's good in the film, and I think he's a good actor. I just think it's not there on the page. It's just not there in the script. So I think he's giving it as much as he can give it, but I just didn't really feel terribly invested in like his character's story. I mean, I don't know how. I don't know how did his story sort of resonate with you? I mean, a lot of the stuff in this film is very tropey. I haven't got a problem with that. Like most films are kind of dealing have familiar plot lines, familiar plot beats. So if there is something fresh within it, then like I'm on board with it. But I just his character it fell a bit flat, and I felt that was a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you there. Like Sterling K. Brown, great actor. Brian Tyree Henry, I really like him. Loved him in Atlanta. Loved him in Bullet Train. I really enjoy his work. Their chemistry together, there isn't much to go on. Now, if something was already established with their characters in a previous film and we're picking up on that, okay, sure. But to go from zero to having to care about this relationship dynamic to really feeling for Sterling K. Brown when, spoilers, something happens to his brother, it's not there for me, and all that emotion is lost. Now, they didn't have a lot of interaction, but the interaction that Sherman and Niece have together is outstanding. Like, I believed every second and was so curious as to what their backstory was and how they just had little sentences and little breadcrumbs here and there and built this massive world around two people with as little dialogue as possible. That was well done. So when it came time to have their little confrontation of their own, like that one, I was a little more like, God, I really don't know who to root for in this case because I'm not, let's see what happens here. That was probably the most exciting part of it. And you want to see that with the other characters and their subplots, but you don't get it. So it feels one-sided to an extent, and it's like, well, if you nailed that, how come you couldn't nail the rest of it? Even the father-son dynamic between Zachary Quinto and Jeff Goldblum. I can't believe I was about to blank on his name. on Jeff Goldblum. Like, even their chemistry, it could have been a little bit stronger, and instead we get this, like, kind of half-ass attempt at what we get kind of with Goldblum, or excuse me, with Sterling K. Brown and Tyree Henry, and it doesn't land as well. So it kind of hurts knowing that it can absolutely land, but then to see it not with the other ones, it's like, come on, you missteps here.
Yeah, it's really interesting what you say, because I completely agree with you about that. Like Niece and Sterling, their relationship. There's a fantastic little scene where they're sat at that bar, they're having a conversation, and I think Sterling says, "Oh, how long's it been?" Which is a real cliche line, and then she says something, and then he just says, "Yeah, I know exactly how long it is," and it just kind of like undercuts the cliche, and it just you kind of contrast the strength of that scene and those character dynamics with the kind of relationship between Zachary Quinto and Jeff Goldblum, where I'm sure Jeff Goldblum can be the mobster who's disappointed in his frustratingly underwhelming son, and Zachary Quinto can be the kind of, I'm sure he can do that character who knows, I'm not a chip off the old block, just a disappointment to my father. But they are not working together in this film at all. They don't feel like they have any kind of chemistry whatsoever.
No, absolutely agree. And if anything, I like Charlie Day. I feel like he's miscast in this film as his character. I think if you take Zachary Quinto and Charlie Day and swap their roles, I think it's that much stronger and that much more believable, and you would have much better understanding of the dynamic just from a physical presence with their characters in addition to the dialogue. Like that's something that watching this movie, I'm like, man, I really wish these two would have been swapped because it'd be that much stronger.
So Hotel Artemis has strict rules, no weapons, no killing, and it has to be said, They are in many ways reminiscent of those in the Continental in the John Wick movies. I guess I wanted to ask you, how believable are these rules that this hotel particular has?
They feel believable, and I can appreciate the extra level of security they go through, especially for like the type of business that it is. But I feel like, what's the sense of having them if we're immediately just going to say, well, yeah, except for this one rule, I'm going to break it to go do whatever. I feel like, because Jodie Foster's character is so hard-nosed about it. She says, nope, this is the rules. You can't, like, she's not even letting, at the very beginning, certain people in because they don't have the proper credentials. Like, you know, she's not letting them in. She's even hanging up on guys that are rude to her. And it's like, okay, she's really hard-nosed about this. But then, all of a sudden, she's just not. For a reason that, okay, sure, I guess I'm okay with as it goes. But in the moment, I'm just like, I'm not feeling it. Either you're not selling it well enough for me to believe like it's okay for you to break this rule, or you're just creating suspense and extra tension where there really doesn't need to be any. Because the whole time this thing happens, if you take out her bringing in, you know, this additional character, right, and breaking the rules, if you take that out of the movie, you don't really need it. Like, there's nothing kind of additional thrown in there that makes it that much more or that much less exciting. I feel like they just kind of throw it in there for added tension. But again, we're doing it almost
I think they throw it in there for exposition. I mean, that character's pure exposition, really, like about Jodie Foster's backstory.
But we're going to break a rule just for exposition. It just feels a little lazy to me. I feel like there's other ways to go about doing it. You know, we find that Sterling K. Brown's character, he's a pickpocket well, not a pickpocket, but he has the pickpocketing skills. So there's no way, like, we couldn't have him finding some information or seeing something laying around and asking the others about it and building a conversation that way. Then, okay, when you have these other subplots, or we learn, oh, these characters have some similarities, and when they have these bigger emotional moments, okay, now I'm going to feel something. But if we just keep adding them on and adding them on, it gets lost in the sauce, and it doesn't do it for me. So, yeah, the rules work, but what's the sense of having them if you're just going to break them anyway?
Well, I mean, at the beginning of the show, you did explain how you confused this film with the Continental TV series, but in many ways, the rules of Hotel Artemis, they're very reminiscent of the whole John Wick universe, and you could rename this film like Hospital Continental, couldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely, you could. You could turn it into a show on whatever streaming network you wanted to. I would tune in and watch it. If it was like ER, but for hitmen in a continental type setting, I'm there. Like, I will watch that show. Probably wouldn't be that good, but I will watch it.
I mean, actually, you know, would this have been a more interesting sequel in the John Wick franchise than some of the sequels that we've got? You know, you just kind of replace, like, say, Sofia Boutella's character with John Wick.
I don't think so, because I think the whole time you would be expecting a level of fighting that's not present, and then you would also be wondering, you know, was the film just not strong enough? They had to shoehorn it into this universe. Could it have stood alone? Stood alone on its own. And I think I would have just gotten hung up on that and not really enjoyed it as much as I did.
Try this. Okay. You have Keanu Reeves making a cameo in this film, and he's checking out of the Hotel Artemis just as Sterling K. Brown's character is checking in.
Yeah, I'm there for it. Now, like, I'm not so much a huge John Wick guy where I'd be like, oh my God, no way. But I'd be like, oh, okay, cool, this is nice. Like, this is fun. A little back and forth, similar to, you know, how it's those little human moments that they have, right? Like in John Wick, when he's at the bar talking to the bartender, and when he's with Willem Dafoe's character, or even talking to, I can't think of his name right now, but he was in the Wire. I think Clark Peters or Peter Clark, whatever. That guy, like, they're a little back and forth, just a little one-off. Like, hey John, how's it going? Oh, I didn't know you were back into it. Yeah, me either. I've been there before. And then off he goes in his car with a dog, and then so on and so forth. And you even bring up the dog, like, so John's allowed to bring a dog, and we can't. Yeah, John can bring a dog, and then you go back into whatever. So you can mine that for some gold. There's comedy to be had there. And maybe that takes the place and adds a little bit more, because then in other films, it's like, you know, maybe there's a one-off line of like, oh, did you hear about, you know, Honolulu's brother? And it's like, wait, what happened? And then, you know, Bob's your uncle.
Well, let's talk about Jodie Foster's character who plays the nurse here. Through the film, we learned that she's someone who used to run a free clinic, but that along with her life, that kind of fell apart after her son died suddenly. And then when her life was at rock bottom, she was given this opportunity to run Hotel Artemis. What did you make of her character? Do you think she was driven by guilt, compassion, or routine?
I think at first it was guilt, and then it just became routine. I think the compassion is just always there, but in the guilt and grieving process, I think she poured herself into her work, and that allowed her to like move on. And it allowed her to become the character that she became and develop the relationships that she did, and kind of keep that little piece to herself. And when she needed to tap into it, she can tap into it. She can play a certain song and just kind of hang out and grieve and process that emotion. But I genuinely think there wasn't a lot of emotion there until someone else brought it to her. And then it was like, oh, I need to continue to suppress this. So that made it interesting to see how she would react when others would bring it up. But I think for her herself, it was just pure guilt and routine.
Yeah, I mean, I think routine is the kind of the primary driver here, because it's become her coping mechanism, and it's her way of just sort of keeping everything in its own specific little box, in its own specific little compartment, and maintaining the routine means that she doesn't think about anything more than she does, and it means that she doesn't have to engage with the outside world really at all, in terms of, or certainly anything beyond people that come in through the doors of the hospital or the hotel. So I think that's really what is kind of her particular driving her, and it's trapped her in the isolation that she has in this hospital. But let's talk about the world of Hotel Artemis. It's a film that's set in the near future, in a time where the public are rioting over water shortages, or because of the privatization of Los Angeles' water supply. How well realized do you think the world of this film is? Did we need the riot? Does the film even need to be set in the future?
I don't think so. I don't think you need any of that. I think you can just have the concept as is. Maybe instead of all the technology being able to have like a machine that'll automatically, perform these procedures, maybe you have additional like hotel staff and personnel. And that makes it a little more intriguing, because it's like, who is this staff? Who are they hiring? Because right now you just got Jodie Foster and Bautista, so maybe you hire a couple other wrestlers to be the rest of the staff. But I don't think the futuristic setting is necessary. If anything, I think it would be cooler if they went the reverse and set it maybe during like another, like the Rodney King riots in LA. Maybe you have it set during that riotous time, or you have it set, when there's wildfires going on in California and people are still freaking out and there's a lot of panic in the air and someone's trying to rob a bank while this panic is going on, or so, there's someone trying to take advantage of a horrible situation, and they find themselves in a different type of horrible situation, and they come to this place that's kind of always existed. I think that would have been a little more intriguing, and you would have to have a little more creativity of like, how are we going to get out of this? Oh, I've got this eye camera that, I need to watch you die because someone paid for it that way. It could be, you play with the tech that way of like, I have a camera strapped to my head, or I need to get a helicopter. Someone's got signal flares, and that creates a whole other dynamic and tension and all this other stuff. So I think there's ways to go about doing it, and what they did is fine. But for me, it just comes across as like just a social commentary that kind of falls flat. Like okay, the water rights have been sold and people are freaking out.
Yeah.
Okay, so what? There's not like, we don't see any of the other parts of the argument. We don't really see any of the conflict of what's going on. We just keep hearing, oh, the riots are coming and it's going to be pretty bad, or oh, there's cops out there to maintain the riots. Okay, and like what else is there? There's no other. It's not like there's a huge flood coming. There's no other additional force that's pushing the film forward outside of what's happening within the hotel itself. So I don't see how any of it is even really needed.
No, I agree. I mean, it's very much about adding atmosphere, but it's just not a fully formed social critique like this film. There's kind of hints of it, but it doesn't follow through in it at all, and it's really just about atmosphere. It's really just a backdrop to make you think, ooh, what's this world? And I guess there are little plausibility details that it adds, in the sense of we see the near future tech that the nurse has to work with, which actually gives you the idea or fleshes out the concept that actually one medic could actually run an entire hospital, because we see the sort of gadgets and gizmos that she's got in order to sort of treat patients. But all of the stuff about the water shortages and stuff, there's no great social critique behind this movie ultimately, and it's really just window dressing and provides atmosphere. And that's okay. That's fine. It might have been interesting if some of those aspects were more fully fleshed out, but maybe it would start becoming a different movie then. And whether it would be better, who knows? This is the movie we got, and actually, it's a pretty decent movie, despite the fact that it's not doing something. It's not doing something different. But one thing I did want to have a little chat with you about was about the kind of the balance within this film, about, I guess, the action beats and the character beats, because what kind of film do you feel sort of Hotel Artemis wants to be?
I think it wants to be a crime thriller. I think it wants to be an action film, and I think there's just light elements of sci-fi that's sprinkled in there. So across the board, I think it's just an action thriller. And it has the crime elements, and it has the sci-fi elements. And I mean, if you want to go so far as to say dystopian, you could say that too if you wanted to. But I think it's also just a genre film. It's just a fun across the board, hey, we're just going to throw everything in a pot and see if it works. And it does. And I think it's a combination of the writing. I think it's the cast. I think it's the setting. It's just one of those films where everything just kind of works out really well. I'm also a fan of films where there's a couple different characters or a couple different groups within one setting, and they might not all have the same goal, but they still have to interact with each other in order for something to happen. Films like The Warriors. Granted, the setting isn't one hotel, it's the vast of New York City. Or you have something like Smokin' Aces, where they're in one Las Vegas hotel. Or you have something like Clue, where they're in one mansion. You have all these different ways and facets for people to interact. And it can be anything, because there's, comedic elements to it. There's dramatic elements to it. There's so many different things you can do. And sometimes it's just fun to be like, what kind of film is it? And you're like, I don't know. You kind of just have to watch it, and then get your friends or your whoever to watch it with you that way.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you. This is a bit of a genre mashup, and it kind of stirs together some interesting ingredients. I think I see it slightly differently to you. I think it's more stronger on character and drama than it is on anything else. There are some action beats within it, but I think fundamentally it is a character drama, maybe a bit of a mystery, or a thriller. But yeah, I wouldn't go in here looking for huge amounts of action. I think you definitely want to be picking up a different film if you are looking, if you're in the mood for that sort of action thing. But I enjoyed revisiting Hotel Artemis. It'd been a few years since I'd seen this film, and yeah, I enjoyed coming back to it. And it's no dig, it's no slur on the film to say I don't need to see it again. But you know what? I have enjoyed my time with this movie, and you know what? Sometimes that's good enough.
Right there with you.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be looking at the exploding helicopter action.
There ain't no right and wrong, Sugar Pop. There's just power. I'm making our first millions, but it's up to you to get us respect.
It is a time of conflict.
You're the good that's gonna come out of all this bull.
A time to take command.
I'm gonna make it right.
Now.
Damn, that's fast.
He's bringing a new hope to the hood.
Tonight we wake up every neighborhood crack house in this city.
And a new beat.
Move your head back and forth like a rooster.
To the street.
If we hook up Uzis to these flying machines, we got our own fighter planes, man.
Crack it down.
Whoever controls the skies controls the streets.
Neighbors actually cheer the flying mobsters as they swept from the skies and destroy yet another neighborhood rock house today.
And cleaning house.
Case closed.
Because they're ultra cool. Ultra lethal.
No more Mr. Nice Guy.
And ultra light.
It's classified as a recreational vehicle, and no license is required to fly it.
Who's gonna give you a ticket up there anyway?
Goes one step beyond Spike Lee and John Singleton. For the good of the hood, Jamal Fanaka's Street Wars.
War, funky fairy tale of the street.
We're back, and now we're looking at the exploding helicopter action. This occurs about 20 minutes into the film. With a riot raging all around them, Dave Bautista is up on the roof of the hospital repairing the generator. Behind him, in the background, we can see a missile race across the night sky and hit a helicopter, which briefly spins out of control before crashing into a skyscraper and exploding. Nick, what did you make of the exploding helicopter action?
Well, first I'll say I was just happy that it wasn't a flashback to reuse stock footage, I will say. Because those that have listened here, of the last 3 episodes I was on, we literally talked about the same explosion twice. So to get something a little different, a little out of the box, it was kind of nice. This isn't one of my favorite explosions, but I did kind of like it. Just because it's very picturesque. It kind of happens in the background, almost like it just feels natural. You know, it feels like I'm watching someone have a conversation and the rain is falling and there's a beautiful like thunderstorm in the background that we could see the flashes of lightning and hear the thunder. Just this really nice rocket coming across, hits a helicopter slams into the building, explosion galore. I would have liked to have seen more of the helicopter falling. I think we've touched on how much I am a fan of seeing that type of action. I do wish somehow it was a little bit brighter, like maybe a stray spotlight comes through, or there's somehow a flare that comes up, just so we could see a little bit more of that fireball action. But it's still kind of nice to just see it in the background, like if fireworks were going off while you're watching a parade or something. Like it was just nice. I don't know how else to describe it other than it was just nice.
You know what, Nick? I am totally with you on your appreciation of the exploding helicopter in this particular movie, because, you know, in many ways, if you had described this exploding helicopter to me in the abstract, I would have said, "What is this? This sounds like a terrible idea for an exploding helicopter," because you want the generally we want the exploding helicopter to play an intrinsic role within the movie, to be part of the climax, to be a really sort of important plot moment, and to be seen up close and to seen from multiple different angles. Whereas this one, it's essentially meaningless. It's completely incidental to the plot and the story of the film. But you know what? Actually, after witnessing it within this, I really appreciated the fact that it was nice to have an exploding helicopter that doesn't matter. And I agree with you. It was like watching like a video art installation or something. I mean, it's somehow, by having it off in the background, having it meaningless, it sort of has, I don't know, it feels elevated into something of beauty.
It feels artsy. It's like they said, look, we're going to spend the money. We don't need to, but let's spend the money and put it on in the background. Like,
yes.
Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like you were cleaning and you're like, let me just throw some on in the background as a comfort watch. And you're like, man, this is like kind of nice. Because when the film started, anytime I start the movie, I'm like, okay, where's this helicopter going to happen? I'm going to assume the end, because that's most oftentimes when it happens. So it's probably going to be during an escape.
Yeah.
Okay, are they going to be shooting at this thing? Is it rockets? So then just to see it in the distance, I'm like, oh, like that's just, how nice. Like you're eating outside and a breeze comes by. Not so strong to where your napkin goes everywhere, your food, whatever, but just enough to be like, ooh, there's the weather. Like, it's just nice.
It's like those. Have you seen any of those like slow TV videos, which are just like it's maybe a camera on the front of a train that is traveling across, I don't know, rural Norway or something.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I absolutely have. Shout out Mark. Many, many times being over a friend of mine, Mark, his house, having dinner, TV on, we're not watching anything. The TV's just on, but it's just like that aerial footage of a city, or you're on the front of that train or something like that. Yeah, 100%.
And that's what this scene feels like. And I was just like, wow, what would one of the, I guess this is a sort of little brief flavor of what the equivalent, if you did of that, of like an exploding helicopter would just be sort of slow TV exploding helicopter. And if this is what that would be like, I want to see more of it.
Yeah, and the fact that Dave Bautista is just kind of hanging out, also appreciating it. Okay, sure, I'm there. Sell it to me. I'm for it.
That really made me warm to him a lot. That he was that he was taking that in, getting to enjoy that. I felt like he was a kindred spirit in that moment.
Yeah, like more than a fly on a wall.
Okay, I think that just about wraps things up for this show. Nick, before you're discharged, do you want to take a moment to plug anything else you've got going on?
I would, yes. You can always find me, rabbitholepodcasts.com. I'm over on the Play MST for Me show, where I'm watching episodes of Mystery Science Theater 3000, as well as Lyrical Innuendo, looking at music lyrics and telling you, is it about sex, drugs, rock and roll? Just kind of digging in for the subtext, if you will. But recently, I was invited by Movie Rob to his Minute by Minute podcast. He recently had me on for the 11th season, where he discussed Band of Brothers. And as that's wrapping up, the newest episode of his newest season on the Shawshank Redemption is starting to air. And I find it funny that it's starting to air right now, because those episodes are releasing, and a public school system in Utah just banned the Stephen King collection of stories that includes the novella that was the inspiration for, or the adaptation of, Shawshank Redemption. So I'm not saying the two are related by any means, but there's something there, and I'm going to get to the bottom of it.
Okay, well, let me know how that investigation goes. As always, don't forget to check out the Exploding Helicopter website at explodinghelicopter.com for more reviews and information about films where helicopters explode. If you could help spread the word about what we're doing by rating, reviewing, or reposting, we'd be immensely grateful. We'll be back soon, but until then, what should people do, Nick?
Keep watching the skies for those exploding helicopters.
This podcast is a proud member of the Lamb Podcasting Network. Find the network at largeassmovieblogs.com.